Welcome to Bridging the Gap, the podcast where we connect families, educators, and advocates to empower neurodiverse children. I'm your host, Kayla Westman, special education advocate and founder of the Bridge Coaching Services. As a passionate advocate and dedicated coach, I've seen firsthand the transformative power of collaboration and support. Together, we'll explore the latest insights, strategies, and stories from the world of special education, all aimed at bridging the gap between families, schools, and communities. Welcome back to Bridging the Gap, the podcast where we empower parents and caregivers to navigate the special education system with confidence. I'm your host, Kayla Westman, a passionate advocate dedicated to supporting families and ensuring that every child gets the education they deserve. Today, we are diving in to a crucial topic, the one that I hear time and time again from families when they are beginning their journey: the Individualized Education Program, or IEP. There are no roadmaps for this. I mean, there are, but you have to know where to look to find them. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by the process, don't worry, you are not alone, and we are here to help you understand it better. Okay, so starting with the basics, the IEP, or Individualized Education Plan, is a federal legal document that outlines the special education services and supports that a child with disabilities will receive in a public school. It's tailored to meet each child's unique needs, ensuring that they have access to the resources they need to access their free and appropriate public education. So that includes academics and the social component of school. So the IEP is a plan that is developed by a team. Now, this team must include a few crucial players: the parents, the teachers, there must be an admin, and there are other specialists depending on the needs of each individual child. So remember, there are overarching rules and laws, but this is individualized. So each plan is tailored. Each team needs to be specific to the student so that they are able to address the specific educational needs of that child. It's not simply a piece of paper. It is a roadmap to ensure that the child is able to be successful in school. So now that we understand what an IEP is, let's talk about how it's created. It can feel like a really big process, but the positive is that it doesn't all happen at once. The negative is that it doesn't all happen at once. So there are timelines that can feel like they take forever, but it's designed to be collaborative and give everybody a chance to center around your child and their best interests. When you are just beginning the process of an individualized education plan for your child, it starts with a referral. So who can create this referral? Who can start the process? You can. As a parent, you are able to bring your concerns about your child's education and their learning to the teacher and to the school. It can also start as a conversation from the teacher or from the school. When the referral happens, parents must be given a chance to discuss their concerns. The evaluation process cannot move forward without parental consent. And an initial evaluation, parental consent is required. wired before evaluation. So we look at, as an IEP team, we look at the child globally for an initial evaluation. If the parent is bringing the concerns forward, we meet with the school team and we discuss what those concerns are. We look at data, because remember, without data, all you have is an opinion. So we look at data to determine what we are seeing and determine what areas of assessment need to happen. Once the team has agreed about the initial referral and what evaluations are going to be completed, then the parent signs the initial consent and the eligibility evaluation timeline begins. So we'll dive more in a later episode into all of the different assessments that can go into eligibility testing, because it really is individualized. Okay, it depends on what the concerns are for each parent. Evaluations range from cognitive to physical therapy to communication, academics. There is a wide range of evaluations depending on your child's unique circumstances. Once that eligibility, usually it's 60 days. The school district has 60 days to complete that initial eligibility and schedule the eligibility meeting. Okay, so during that time, the school will test your child and then you will meet together, including your child's general education teacher, possibly a special education teacher. All of the providers who did the assessment should be there. And you all meet so that the providers can review the assessments with the team. Okay. Once all of the assessments have been reviewed, they use that data to determine how and what your child qualifies for. It is a team decision, and the data that the statisticians or the therapists bring, the evaluation information, is crucial, but the team needs to keep in mind that it might just be one piece of data taken at one moment in time. So I always like to make sure when I attend meetings with my clients, especially initial eligibility meetings, that we are looking globally at this child. And if we have a discrepancy in data, that we take steps to assess further or dive farther into that area so we can make sure that they are being correctly supported. Okay, parents are equal members of the IEP team. Equal members of the IEP team. That is crucial. So once you have determined eligibility, we have determined that your child does qualify for special education in the areas of X, Y, and Z. So now we need to write the IEP for your child. Okay, so there are 5 pillars of the IEP, and each of those pillars need to point back to the eligibility document. Okay, we need to pull the needs from the eligibility and write the IEP to support and mitigate those areas of need. When I'm attending meetings with my clients, usually school districts will want to schedule the eligibility and the IEP all at once. And I get it. Meetings are hard to schedule. There's a lot of players involved. But to truly work through an initial IEP meeting takes a lot of time and a lot of mental and emotional executive functioning skills. It's a lot. And it is very rare that we are able to make it through both an eligibility and an IEP in the 1.5 or 2 hours that are usually allotted for each meeting. So usually when I'm attending these meetings, I request that we schedule 2 meetings as close together as possible, just in case we don't make it through on the first time around. If we do, then that's great, and we can cancel the other meeting and everybody gets a couple hours back in their day. So once we get through the eligibility, now we're looking at the IEP. There are 5 pillars to the IEP document. Okay, those are present levels, goals, services, accommodations, and progress monitoring. The present levels are present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. PLAAFP, PLAF, is kind of the acronym. And this area should be taken from the eligibility report, from classroom observation, from therapist observation, from parent input. There is a whole section in the PLAF that is for parent input. Okay, and this should be more than 1 or 2 sentences. This is a really robust area where I spend a lot of time in meetings going through this area, because once we have outlined the students' present levels, the rest of it pretty much writes itself. IEP goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay, they should be goals that target the needs identified in the PLAF, identified by the team in the eligibility report. Okay, they can be academic, they can be functional, they can be social, they can be behavioral, but whatever those are, they are needs pulled from the previous sections that we've already gone through as a team. Once you have the goals, then those goals drive the services and supports, right? So we've already identified the needs from the eligibility. Now we are going to have services that are designed to address the goals, which address the needs. You see how we're building on here? So services that might be included could be special education instruction, academics, speech therapy, occupational therapy, counseling. There is a wide array of services, okay? But they need to be targeted to your kiddo and targeted to their needs. Another pillar of the IEP is the accommodations modification section. So these are kind of 2 pieces of this pillar. So accommodations are supports put into place in their general education setting. Okay, these are designed to help them access the same content as their peers. So an example of an accommodation might be extended time. And I use this one because I actually really don't like this accommodation, just written out as extended time. But that is an accommodation. Another one might be a wiggle seat, or another one that we see a lot is preferred seating. That might be next to the teacher, might be able to be next to a para. There are lots of different accommodations. There are also accommodation banks, but I don't typically like those because I feel like it kind of becomes not individualized for the child. So we have accommodations, Modifications are different. Modifications are the big changes we make to the student's learning environment. Okay, so if a student requires a functional life skills curriculum, that is a modification. If a student requires half day at school, that is a modification. And again, those are all pulled from, the needs. Those are all pulled from the needs. The last pillar of the IEP is progress monitoring. And this is one that I find gets forgotten a lot. And I talk to my clients when before our first meeting, and I always warn them that this area might be a little bit sticky. Progress monitoring discusses how and when the school will track and report on your child's progress on their IEP goals. Without data, we have nothing. We just have an opinion. So we need data to ensure that the targeted interventions that we agreed upon are working, that the goals are applicable, that they are making progress. But how are we going to take data? When are we going to take data? And how often is it going to be reported to the parents? Those are all things that the IEP team needs to discuss and agree upon. As a parent, your role in the IEP process is crucial. You are a required member of the IEP team. The federal law, IDEA, mentions parents over 400 times in the law. You are crucial. You are a critical member. You are your child's best advocate. You are an expert in your child. Your input is vital to creating an effective IEP. I like to encourage my parents that we request a draft copy of the IEP previously before the meeting. And we understand that this is a draft. This document is going to change, but we want it so that we are able to have informed discussions with the team. We want to look at the data beforehand so that we can write out our questions, so that we can point out insights in the assessments or in the goals. We need to be able to really collaborate and effectively communicate what we see as our child's strengths and needs. While we are doing that, sometimes we have disagreements within the IEP team, and that's okay. It's uncomfortable, but a little bit of productive struggle is healthy. It's good for an IEP team to grow in order to meet the needs of this child. As a parent, you have a right to disagree with the IEP. You have a right to request changes in services, additional services, or even an independent educational evaluation if needed. All of those, if you have a disagreement with your IEP team, should be requested in writing. Sometimes IEP meetings can be intense, especially if there's going to be disagreement. Here are some tips for a successful IEP meeting. We already talked about being prepared. We're going to request the document ahead of time so that we can write out our questions, our concerns. We can make notes about things we agree with and things that we maybe have questions about. I know, because I have sat on both sides of the table, I know that it can feel like you have your school team sitting on one side and you as the parent are all alone on the other side. Most schools work really hard to work collaboratively so that it doesn't feel that way. But we understand, and I know that it does. You are always allowed to bring someone to your IEP meeting with you. It can be a friend, it could be an advocate, it can be somebody who has knowledge of your child, who can just be a separate set of ears to take notes for you. We want to say things in a way that illustrates a picture of our child's needs. Okay. Ask questions. If one of the team members is using educational jargon, speaking that alphabet soup again, ask for clarification. Remember, your school team, they live, eat, and breathe this. It is okay to ask questions. Understanding the IEP is a crucial step in advocating for your child's education. You're not alone in this journey. There are resources, advocates, and communities that are ready to support you. Friends, if you found this episode helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would share this with other parents who might benefit from it. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so that you don't ever miss an episode. You can always reach out for help on our Facebook group, Bridging the Gap, on my Facebook page, the Bridge Coaching Services, or schedule a complimentary consultation on my website, which you can find in the episode notes. Before we go, a quick legal disclaimer. I am a special education advocate, not an attorney. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guests and do not constitute legal or professional advice. If you have specific questions or concerns about your child's education, please see the transcripts for a link to schedule a complimentary consultation. Thanks for tuning in to this podcast of Bridging the Gap. If you found this conversation helpful, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Join us next time as we continue to explore the latest insights and strategies in special education. Remember, together we can bridge the gap between families, schools, and communities to empower children with